In the Queltequan galaxy, an emergency session of the Galactic Council was summoned. The Grand Councilwoman, the Grey Alien leader of the United Galactic Federation, informed her subordinates of a very dangerous threat they apprehended. A monstrosity that is the product of an illegal genetic experiment, carried out by Dr. Jumba Jukiba. Dr. Jumba was tasked with merely studying biological threats, but he ended up creating them. He further told the Council how Experiment 626 is unstoppable, indestructible, and smarter than all of them in the Council combined. The Grand Councilwoman still gave 626 a chance to show them there's good in him, but he used the opportunity to insult them in alien language. Looking at all the circumstances, the Grey Alien leader gave her final verdict, which entails Dr. Jumba's lab will be completely destroyed, while Experiment 626 is to be immediately exiled from their land. Before he was exiled, it was protocol to get his genetic signature, but 626 turned the tides around in his favor, by causing commotion right there in the lab. Experiment 626 escaped captivity on short notice, then he absconded using one of the Grey leader's favorite ship. The Grey leader ordered them to fire at will, but even at that he was still able to successfully escape to Earth. Dr. Jumba decided to take advantage of this situation. He proposed he's the only one that can get her out of this mess, if only she releases him and gives him back his lab. Agent Pleakley also joined in on the conversation, claiming he's an expert on Earth species, so he should be sent to capture 626. The Grey Alien leader finally allowed Dr. Jumba to travel to Earth and capture the monster, but on the condition that Agent Pleakley accompany him, to make sure he doesn't harm any of Earth's life form while hunting 626. Agent Pleakley was immensely happy on the opportunity given him, whilst Dr. Jumba had an ulterior motive in mind. Back on Earth, an orphaned 6-year-old native Hawaiian girl who has a special affinity for animals, released a flock of chickens from their cage because she felt they should be free. On checking her time and discovering she's late, she scurrily headed to her dance practice and filled in her spot. She showed her friendship bracelet to her peers, but they all considered her a weirdie, as what's the essence of a friendship bracelet when she has no friends? The Hawaiian dance started on short notice, but Lilo was distracted by the fact that her sister has not arrived yet. One of the dancers pushed her down, and when Lilo got up, she was so aggravated that she took it upon herself to retaliate. Lilo was in a discombobulated state afterwards, and it was then her sister, Nanny, arrived. Nanny's arrival was late so she didn't meet anyone at the event. Meanwhile, Lilo, already at home, played a native Hawaiian song and laid down in depression. Nanny arrived to meet the door locked, also with a go-away note stamped on it. In the process of trying to convince Lilo to open the door, Mrs. Kikoa, who happened to be a social worker, arrived. Nanny attempted leading her through the back to gain entrance, only to discover Lilo locked it also. Nanny, however, forcefully broke into the house. Nanny tried to present herself well as a good guardian so they won't take away custody of Lilo from her, but she was doing very poorly at it, and the house was slowly falling into disarray. Mrs. Kikoa confronted Nanny about what a poor job she's doing, and she's supposed to report it to the authorities, as her job is to make sure Lilo is in a stable environment, but she decided to give Nanny a second chance to get herself in the home in order. After Mrs. Kikoa left, Nanny and Lilo had a big fight on why she wasn't well behaved. I'll swear. In space, 626 got repeated warnings from his spaceship to check the engine, but the sound aggravated him so much that he destroyed all the warning buttons. Before you knew it, the spaceship crash-landed into Earth. Nanny reconciled with Lilo after she told her of the way her peers treats her, but then, Lilo noticed something that seemed like a shooting star coming down. Lilo pursued Nanny out of her room so she could make a wish, then she wished for a real friend. Someone who won't tease her or run away. She wished for a real best friend. 626 maniacally celebrated his successful evasion of the aliens, but then the collar on his neck started shocking him extensively. Not knowing it was Dr. Jumba pressing it, trying to figure out the function of that button. Pleakley tried to stop him from pressing it, when they can rather use it to find his exact location. Meanwhile, 626 sought out ways to remove his collar, so he shocked it with a very high voltage wire, which worked as they lost signal of him in the spaceship, and 626 was able to get rid of the collar. 626 sighted a sumptuous cake from afar, so using a shuttle cart, he flung himself into the wedding ceremony, thereby causing destruction. They looked for him to kill him, not knowing he was chilling in one of the cups. A whole lot of havoc happened afterwards, which finally ended with 626 eating the cake he came for. A tour bus rammed into 626 along the road, causing him to tumble so hard that he passed out. I'll swear. Jumba and Pleakley decided to follow the path of destruction to find 626, so they disguised themselves to be able to thread through the crowd unnoticed. To ensure their cover isn't blown, they used hologram projections to appear as the humans they just touched. They weren't able to walk well in their new skin, but even with the struggles, Pleakley was able to book a hotel room for them to stay in. Animal Control captured 626 after they found him passed out. While in the elevator, Jumbo and Pleakley heard the news of 626's accident and his current location. Lilo pleaded with Tutu to take her to the animal shelter as Nanny won't, and she agreed, so Lilo ran off happily. 626 woke up from his slumber, only to find himself in a cage surrounded by other dogs in cages also. He tried communicating with them to free him, but instead they all barked at him non-stop, so he broke the cage by himself. Lilo arrived at the animal shelter on short notice. 626, after making his way out the facility, sighted a sumptuous piece of cake of which he ate, not knowing it was a trap set by Jumba and Pleakley. They shot tranquilizers at him from different directions, while all 626 could do was to evade their attacks. Seeing outside is too dangerous, he slickly made his way back into the animal shelter. On getting in, Lilo noticed all the dogs usually cheerful are scared to their guts. Meanwhile, 626 thought of a smart way to make Lilo adopt him. To look more like a dog, he took his excess hands inside also with the rest of his alien qualities, then he sat down in a cute way so Lilo could notice him. Lilo was initially terrified when she saw him, but after a little bonding she got comfortable with 626. Tutu ended up adopting 626 for Lilo. Jumba tried to shoot him, but Pleakley got in the way and was shot instead, making 626's escape plan successful. Nanny was very angry that Tutu allowed Lilo to adopt 626, so Tutu had to lie it was her idea to save Lilo from backlash. It was already time for Nanny's shift, so she made it clear to Lilo that 626 is her responsibility, so she needs to take good care of him. Spontaneously, CIA agents led by Cobra Bubbles found a wrecked alien ship in the forest, so Cobra decided to investigate deeper. Tutu took Lilo and 626 to get an ice cream, but while they were at it, Lilo got bullied by some of her peers. 626 sighted one of them on a minicar so he pushed her out of the car and after jump-starting it, him and Lilo drove away with the car. 626 got to the end of the road, but he was seemingly frustrated as he didn't see any big city to destroy. Lilo tried taking him for a swim at the beach, but he was afraid of water and refused to go. They had such a wonderful time together at the beach. While Nanny was driving them home, it was then Lilo named 626 Stitch. Nanny almost rammed into Jumba and Pleakley on her way. Jumba noticed Stitch inside, but he still peacefully made way for them to pass. Then as they were going he threw an alien tracker underneath their car. Nanny took Lilo and Stitch to work with her, because she was already late and didn't have time to drop them at home. Seeing Stitch was too stubborn to comply, she tied him onto a separate chair, one he easily untied immediately she left. Lilo and Stitch together wreaked havoc. From playing with hose pouring out beer to decorating a food, making it inedible to causing a massive fire to break out. The manager of the bar got so angry and frustrated that he had to relieve Nanny of her job, because she's the one who brought Lilo and Stitch to the event. The car even refused to start, which made the situation a whole lot worse than it already is. Jumba and Pleakley were able to track 626 to the event, then they got a call from the Grand Councilwoman, who questioned why they're taking this long to capture 626, but they assured her it'll be done in no time. Nanny, Lilo and Stitch arrived home on short notice, but unbeknownst to them Cobra and his team were observing them closely from a distance. Stitch continued from where he stopped at the event. He turned the entire house upside down and tumbled anything or anyone that got in his way, and while all this was happening Cobra Bubbles listened to everything they were saying. Nanny swore to take Stitch back to the animal shelter the next day, disregarding Lilo's plea not to do so as she already regards him as family, and claimed he's what she wished for. Listening to the whole conversation, Cobra instructed one of his agents to get him the social worker, so he can go undercover with her. Lilo tried to get Stitch to stop causing problems in the house, and when he finally calmed down and listened, she showed him how cheerful Nanny has always been, insisting that's how family is supposed to be, and they're not supposed to cause problems for each other. She further taught him the Hawaiian dance. Step by step, we begin to see another side of Stitch, one we never thought existed before. The next morning, Cobra Bubbles accompanied the social worker to Nanny's place, and she introduced him as their social services director. Mrs. Kikoa pulled Nanny aside to talk to her about the event at her workplace yesterday, while Cobra slickly tried to get a sample from Stitch for research. Lilo then noticed Cobra doesn't look like a social worker at all, but he was still able to get his sample either ways. On the other hand, Jumba and Pleakley kept on following Nanny, Lilo and Stitch from a distance. Nanny took them to where she went to look for a new job, and while she was pitching herself to the employers, Lilo taught Stitch various ways on how to be on his best behavior, as she noticed his badness level is unusually high for someone his size. Also to avoid wrecking things and finally to lend a helping hand in chores. Nanny pitched herself to many different employers, but all of them turned her down and refused to employ her. Stitch tried to cheer them up by showing Nanny a poster which suggested she teaches people how to surf as her job, and Nanny loved surfing so it was the perfect choice. Stitch saw a dog surfing in the ocean so he pleaded with Lilo to take his surfing, and it was at this moment he conquered his fear for water. Cobra Bubbles arrived at the beach few minutes later. While they were surfing, all of a sudden Jumba and Pleakley chased after them with a speedboat. They shot tranquilizers at Stitch, but it didn't get to him, which gave Stitch more than enough time to overturn the situation. On spur of moment, both the speedboat and surfboard got knocked over by the wave. Lilo and Stitch were on the verge of drowning, so Nanny and David rescued them each. Seeing this unfold, Agent Cobra called base to send an extraction team immediately. Lilo got rushed to the hospital instantly, and they were all happy when the doctor informed them she's okay, but then, Nanny remembered she doesn't have any money to foot the bills which changed her mood. Mrs. Kikoa offered her a way out, but it entails she'd have to officially relinquish guardianship of Lilo. Nanny considered how Lilo would feel when she finds out, but deep inside she knows it's the only choice she has. Pleakley got a call from the Grand Councilwoman, whom is very angry that the humans have found out about their existence, so she terminated her contract with Jumba, then ordered Pleakley to detain him and escort him back to their planet. After she hung up, Jumba trapped Pleakley in a faraway location, and vowed to do things his way now. Nanny told Lilo of the new contract she signed that entails she forfeit her guardianship, and while they were conversing, Stitch eavesdropped on the whole thing and it made him very very sad. Lilo met with Nanny outside to let her know that she understands her reasons. While they were having one last moment together, Stitch left the house devastated. He slowly walked away in his lonesome and depression, then he went back to the animal shelter and laid by himself in his cage. The next morning Cobra and Kikoa arrived to take Lilo away. Nina was all in her feelings as she led them to Lilo's room, but on getting inside she was surprised to find out that Lilo was nowhere to be found. Lilo on the other hand looked everywhere for Stitch and she was finally able to trace him to the animal shelter where they first met. Stitch felt he was the one who broke her family apart, but Lilo convinced him that it isn't entirely his fault, and there's still room for change, insisting that sometimes even family is not perfect. Using a portal, Jumba was able to find Lilo and Stitch in the animal shelter. Stitch attacked him first and retrieved his weapon, then he used it to open a portal in the ceiling and in the ground, which trapped Jumba in a loop where he couldn't stop falling. Lilo and Stitch ran out afterwards, but on getting home, the house was empty and they couldn't find Nanny. Jumba had to transform back to his true nature to stop the loop. In his alien form, he broke into their home in search of Stitch, whereas they hid behind the counter. Lilo and Stitch escaped him using a portal, so Jumba started blasting off everything in the house, hoping Lilo would come back to save her home. Lilo got aggravated when Jumba got to her parents' room, so she confronted him bravely, and it was at that moment he blasted it. Stitch came to her rescue by fighting off and distracting Jumba, then Agent Pleakley arrived also, but Tutu pepper sprayed him before he could utter a word. Jumba was on the verge of killing Stitch for good, so Lilo threw a pan at him which gave Stitch just the right amount of time to knock Jumba out cold. Lilo was looking all badass afterwards. Together they placed Jumba at gunpoint, thereby pushing him to a tight corner. While they were at it, Lilo got to discover that Stitch only picked her at the animal shelter for the sole purpose of protecting himself. In this moment of weakness, Stitch decided not to cause any more damage so he surrendered himself to be captured by Jumba. Stitch felt Jumba would just return him back, but instead he had an evil plan of turning him into Experiment 627. Nanny, Tutu, and David arrived at the crashed house, and it was at this moment they came in contact with Agent Pleakley in his true form. Cobra Bubbles revealed himself as CIA and placed Pleakley under arrest. After Jumba's stay on Earth, he unearthed Stitch is no longer the hazardous monster he created him to be, so he sought to change that by twitching his genetics to eliminate any thirst for love. Unbeknownst to Jumba, Lilo was also on the ship. The ship took off almost immediately. Stitch tried to direct Lilo on which buttons to press to free him, but as he saw Jumba was close to finding out Lilo is on the ship, he caused commotion to distract him. Lilo tried pressing different buttons to release Stitch, but she couldn't find the right one. Rather, Jumba caught wind of the situation and discovered she's on the ship with them. She finally pressed the right button. Stitch was set free and he attacked Jumba immediately, then together Lilo and Stitch booted him out of the ship. Stitch tried to pilot the spaceship, but he broke the handle which caused the ship to start descending in full speed. Stitch suggested Lilo jumps inside the water and save her life, but she refused to go alone. The spaceship eventually crash-landed inside the ocean. Nina and the rest of the crew arrived there shortly. Stitch saw that Lilo was trapped underwater, so he dived in to rescue her. Using all his strength he was able to pull out the barrier holding her, but as Lilo swam back up, Stitch fell back down and got stuck as he couldn't swim. Lilo had to swim back down and bid to rescue him, but he was too heavy for her to pull up alone, so Stitch had to force her to leave him to drown and save herself. Nanny carried Lilo onto the surfboard, but as Lilo told her Stitch is still down there, and they don't leave family behind, she headed back inside the water, and rescued Stitch who was already close to dying. Stitch was lifeless after Nanny brought him out of the water, so using a battery jump starter, they were able to bring him back to life, which made Lilo the happiest person on Earth. As they were celebrating, they sighted another spaceship headed towards their direction. It was the Grand Councilwoman herself with her personal guards. She came to retrieve Experiment 626, and he surrendered himself without putting up a fight. Stitch requested to say goodbye before they take him away, and he was granted the opportunity to bid farewell to his loved ones. Seeing how affectionate Stitch has now become, she allowed Stitch to stay on Earth, on the condition that it's kept a secret, so Agent Cobra promised her not to relay his findings to his superiors, and Pleakley also opted to stay to supervise Stitch. The Queen went back to her planet, knowing Earth is in great hands, and that was how the movie ended. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. Thank you.